The evidence uncovered by the BBC underlies why we are here today and the importance of the work of the London Police Board and how much further we have to go to ensure that the Met is an organisation that earns the trust of all Londoners. The Mayor and I are fully committed to that journey and will continue to do all we can to achieve it.
And the swift actions in this particular case against the individuals is commendable. Also, the fact that you didn't try to kind of run away from what the BBC uncovered. But the response to institutional racism, Islamophobia, misogyny and homophobia and cultural issues has been glacial. And this has been glacial for a very, very long time. So you're talking about facing. I really wonder whether or not this case of Charing Cross makes you think we really need to look at our cultural plan again to see if it's fit for purpose, if review it, strengthen it, make sure that the cultural, systematic, as you might say, some say institutional problems are being addressed much quicker than currently.
You described the endemic and institutional nature of bias and disproportionality really well, and how interesting that's very close to the Macpherson definition of institutionalised racism. The London Policing Board has many times talked about this. I don't want to rehearse it again, but I'm noting that actually it'd be just easier if you just use that terminology, because actually, you know, you use 3 or 4 sentences very well actually to describe exactly that.
So I'm reminded very much of that adage that the culture of an institution is defined by the worst behaviour you tolerate, which I think rings really true here, particularly because Operation Houghton was, the learning report from that was in 2022, and that found several structural issues relating to working practices that had helped enable the problematic behaviour at Charing Cross Station. There were 15 recommendations, including taking a zero-tolerance approach to bullying and harassment in the workplace. Given all of that, how could this continue to happen at Charing Cross Station when so many of the issues around culture were known about? And why didn't the actions, in your view, that were taken after Houghton work to address the culture in Charing Cross Station? And are you sure what you're setting out to do this time around will work?
So a focus on specific individuals and units can feel like you're making progress in terms of changing a culture, and it's not unimportant, as you've just outlined, but that has to be balanced against a wider programme of work that tackles the structural inequalities and entrenched nature of the cultural challenges you face. So I wondered if you would agree that the findings of the Panorama programme at Charing Cross suggest that the balance isn't quite right in your cultural reform plan, and if so, what needs to change?
No, as senior leaders, that you turn up and you have a visit or whatever, and everybody behaves properly, and you think everything's going really well as a result of that. And so those informal networks are the ones that really matter, and those informal networks, I think, come out of doing appraisal really well, apart from other things, so that you'll get people talking to you in a way. It's not whistleblowing, but it's just basically giving you information as a manager. And I'd be really keen to hear from you going forward, not now, because you're obviously just putting this in place now, but how you're going to actually create those informal networks, and how you're going to... Some people can do it well, and some people can't do it terribly well, because it is like an inquisition. So how people are going to be empowered to do it well?
I was more asking the question around how we are encouraging those who have put their hand up to say there's something wrong, because, again, going back to your point, if we're leaning hard to these 700 people, how do we ensure and know that when they do see things come through, they don't admit to what you've considered yourself as career suicide? So that was my point. So I really would love to know and understand how we are going to... You've made some sort of reference to better victim support. and such like as well. But it'd just be good for us to have a bit more insight into that.
The issue for us is when they leave, how is that information being captured to help the Met in terms of making sure the culture is right. For instance, in education, I would never send my child to a school. There's always in a TES recruiting for teachers, but clearly something's wrong with the culture because the salaries are the same. So essentially, there's something not quite working. And then what you tend to get is longevity, but longevity over the culture, i.e. those people who stay long have accepted the culture. New people come in, they don't quite fit in and they move on really quickly.